School in Massachusetts is scheduled to return in the fall, but what would that picture look like? With me is the Superintendent of Wareham Public Schools, Dr. Kimberly Shaver-Hood, to talk about school reopening and what that would mean for your child. Stay tuned. Let's start with how these last few weeks have been for you.
Well, I think I'd really take you back to March 13th, because when we received the message that schools were closing for a period of time, what we now know of how education operated, it has changed dramatically. At that point, we went remote. I am so grateful and complimentary of the job that our faculty and staff did, and of our students, and of course of the parents, because everybody pitched in. It was not a great situation, but they made the very best of it. And as we progressed through the summer, the Department of Secondary and Elementary Education would release different guidelines, would let us know this is what's coming. And so we have had the opportunity to work on a number of plans. The way we approached it in Wareham, we formed a district committee that was more of an umbrella committee. And then from there, the principals formed their building level committees. They involved parents, teachers, paraprofessional, we had custodians, we had clerical. So we had everybody, food service, everybody that worked in our buildings or participated in Wareham schools involved as representative. They developed 3 plans. One is remote, one is hybrid, and one is face-to-face. And as we've progressed, you know, the plans started developing. There's some commonalities in each of the plans, and then there's some unique features depending on the schools. We also have been looking at transportation and how that's going to go. And we have our counselors and social workers working, because we know that social emotional aspect, when our students come back, we're going to have to spend some time on it, because really it's been quite a disruption. And for people to deal with disruption, you know, at times there's a process. How we operate schools, if we come back, you know, even at a hybrid model, there's protocols, procedures that must be in place. So I guess to summarize, we've had events that have occurred that have never occurred before in education, so we have done our very best to deal with them, and we continue to deal.
As you mentioned, the Department of Secondary and Elementary Education did provide 3 options to evaluate whether to open fully in person, whether to do a hybrid approach, or to reverse back into fully virtual learning. Kids at home, teachers are also teaching from home. So the deadline of that proposal is this week. On Thursday, you are to submit what would work, or what you see would be the best approach here in Wareham. What have you voted on?
Well, we've had a number of workshops where the principals have presented their plans to the school committee. Our special education department has also submitted the plans and spoken with the school committee about them. So on Thursday night, the school committee will then vote for what they believe will be our plan, that in turn I will submit to the Department of Education.
It seems like the school committee is looking or favoring the hybrid approach. Do we have details to what that would look like?
Sure. Well, first of all, I need to say anything that we do, the safety of our students and our staff, that's our number one priority. That speaks volumes, that's our highest, that's what we are building everything around. We would really like to have our students back face to face. I'm not sure at this point that is the safest thing for us to do. We also know that at any given moment this year, we could be shut down and go remote. If we do go remote, it's going to look quite different than it did from the spring. So we need to spend a period of time at the beginning of school working with our staff on different learning platforms, on how we're going to deliver curriculum, and how we're going to move forward, how we're going to engage students. The other piece that we need to spend some time doing is working with our students and our staffs on various protocols. Mask wearing, how do we enter and exit the buildings? How do we enter and exit the buses? What do we do if a person is sick? And how we just respond, because we've never had to respond in this manner. So we need to make sure that everybody is on the same page, that we've gone through everything that we can possibly think of just to make sure that we do our very best to keep people safe.
Okay. So that hybrid approach, what are you proposing? What kids will be coming in and who are going to be staying home, and for how long?
Well, so one of the pieces that we're in negotiations with our unions would be, when would we start the hybrid approach? We're going to start at this point in a remote setting. The Department of Education has lowered the number of student days to 170. So that means when we start school, I think it's August 26th with staff, we have days built into the calendar for professional development, 2 days. We then are going to extend another 10 days where we will be working with staff on platforms, on learning platforms, on getting rooms ready, etc. Because one of the things that DESE has required, everything in a classroom needs to come out except desk and chairs, and maybe a few pieces of material, items that kids would work with. Everything else needs to be out. So that's something that's going to have to occur once school starts, because you know how teachers bring in their own supplies at times and things to make their classroom attractive. That's going. So when we start, we're going to bring kids in a very small group. What we would like to do is students will be divided into 2 groups, cohort 1 and cohort 2. We would like to keep families in the same cohort. So if you have, children at the high school, the middle school, and maybe DECAS, they're all going at the same time. We don't want you 2 days to go one building and then another group of children go at a different time. We think while this is not convenient for families, and I understand that, this would be less disruptive. So students will be divided into 2 groups. Right now, our proposal would be for cohort 1 to go on Monday and Tuesday. Cohort 2 would go Thursday and Friday. Wednesday is a deep clean day because we're changing groups, and then we'll start the deep clean on Friday after school's out for the following Monday. At a certain point, then, when students are not at school, then they're remote learning. So lessons will just continue during the 3 days they're home.
Wow. What is busing going to look like with this plan?
Well, that's certainly going to be a challenge for us because we have limited buses and we have limited drivers. Trying to find enough bus drivers in the state of Massachusetts is very challenging. We have guidelines that we have to abide by, and buses are approximately a third full. So we are right now in the process of the people that signed up, we're placing them on bus routes. What needs to happen next, after the school committee would vote, if they accept the remote, then we're going to have to develop the cohorts very quickly, because that will impact busing on who's going to ride on Monday and Tuesday, who's going to ride on Thursday and Friday.
Now, let's say we get to the hybrid approach, and then one of our students has tested positive of coronavirus, or a family member at home. What is the protocol?
So one of the things that will happen every day, anybody that sets foot in our building, we're going to know where they've been, who they've come in contact with, and because we'll have to make notification for contact tracing to occur. If there are people that are determined to be within the given distance and the time length of exposure, they will be notified and they will be quarantined.
So they come in, they get a piece of paper with some questionnaires of what their last 24 hours looked like?
No, we can't do that.
Yes.
But what we would do is when somebody comes in the building, we're going to know what exactly their schedule is. And because everything, there's not going to be really a time when students can just wander through the halls. There's never that time anyway. But even in passing periods, everything is going to be very controlled. So we do our due diligence in keeping people as safe as possible. If we serve lunch at school, it will be in a classroom. There's no more socializing in the cafeteria or wandering outside with friends during lunchtime. Everything is just really going to be contained. At this point, we also do not really want people in the building other than students and staff. In the past, we've welcomed volunteers. This year, that's going to be very difficult for us, just because we want to contain as a limit on contact.
Now, is the state, to your knowledge, working, the Department of Education, are they working towards, once again, if that a case present itself, what you as an administrator can do in your district?
Well, it's really kind of interesting, because the state's giving all of these guidelines, and not that they're attaching strings to it, but we've also been told that likely there may be money coming from the federal government, but if you're remote, your chances of getting that money are not great. You have a much better chance of receiving that money is if you are either hybrid or face-to-face. So they have it. So while everything's suggestions, we try to follow suggestions.
Isn't that backwards? Don't you need that money right now in order to assure the hybrid or a full in-person reopening?
I do. Actually, it would be virtually impossible for us to do a full opening face-to-face for several very important reasons. The first being, I do not have enough staff to do that and meet the guidelines of both the CDC and the state. I would need 156 more employees, which would translate to about $9 million. I then would need approximately 30 more classrooms. And then I would have to buy technology. I would have to outfit those classrooms with supplies, et cetera, meaning like desks and chairs. And, people might say, well, you have all of that. Well, we do have it, but in many of our classrooms, we have tables. And at a table, you can only have one person unless it is a very large table, because at the elementaries, we have people distanced 6 feet apart. At the high school, we have them about 3 to 4 feet apart, just because we can't do any more at that point. So we would still have to buy furniture because we don't have enough desks and chairs to make it work. So we really can't go face to face right now without doing some kind of a hybrid model. We just don't have the facilities, nor do we have the employees or the money.
You mentioned masks. You mentioned keeping being socially distant. How are teachers, how are they going to reinforce this? I'm looking at elementary school kids. And what resources are there for the administrators in these classrooms?
Well, the state has sent out a list of PPE items that we should have. So we've been making purchases all along. And as far as masks, we're making some purchases of masks that we will have available for people to wear. In the elementary grades 2 and up, they need to have a mask on unless they're 6 feet away. On the bus transportation, they have to have a mask on during transportation. And so that's one of the pieces that we really need to work with students on, is mask protocol and why it's very important to wear masks. In the high school and middle school, it's non-negotiable. You have to have a mask on. And so we need to make sure that everybody understands the importance, why we need to have it done. And it's as much about your safety as it is your peers or your friend's safety.
Now, that sounds so easy, but we know in practicality it's not so. I'm thinking at little things such as either if it is an issue of bullying or an issue of cell phones in the classroom, and sometimes parents and teachers are not on the same page. Parents demand something, teachers are trying to enforce the policy, they're not on the same page. Yep. So when it comes to this, especially when it comes to masks, still there is a group within our society who do not believe that they protect us, that they are a necessity. So how are you prepared when you have a parent who doesn't feel that their child should wear a mask all the time, or they don't really see the point?
Right, I understand that. And if there's a medical reason why a child should not wear a mask, we just need the medical documentation. If you cannot provide the medical documentation, I appreciate your point of view, but if your child is going to attend our school, they will have a mask on. If your child chooses not to wear a mask, we are offering remote learning, and your child will be invited to attend remote learning, but they will wear a mask at school.
I love this. You got to do what you need to do.
You do, and I think, and the other piece is, that's one of the conversations we're going to have with teachers, because, even as a parent, there's sometimes I really, really wanted to say to my child, okay, just this one time. And it would always come back to haunt me, because you just can't make exceptions about certain things. That's what I need our staff to understand and follow, because there might be some poor student that is just really struggling and needs to take that mask off, but you just can't do it, because it has to be consistent. Because any time that we're not consistent, that opens the door and makes it difficult the next time or for the next student. And students see when exceptions are made, and this is one time they just can't be.
So The district, did you guys eventually send out those surveys to parents to get their feedback? And what was the results of those surveys?
Yes, we did send out some surveys. Surprisingly, it's neck and neck between hybrid and remote. There's a small percentage difference with people wanting their child to be in a hybrid situation, and in third place is face-to-face, and that was in the 20%. There's going to be another survey going out shortly, and we're going to ask, are you enrolling your child in a remote setting? Because we need to know who's not coming back because you don't feel comfortable sending your child to school. That's fine. As a parent, that's your right. We just need to know that so we can program to work with your child, because we will be offering a remote setting.
So what if the majority of the parents prefer remote setting? Do you need to maintain a certain amount of numbers of kids in order to go with the hybrid approach?
No. And I think that what I do need to know is how many are going to go with the remote and how many are going to go with the hybrid, because we certainly need to program. And in the elementary, it's a little bit more easy because I don't need content-specific classroom teachers. But in the high school or middle school, I need to know what teachers are going to be working remotely, because I need to make sure I have an English, a math, science, etc. teacher that has that ability to work remotely so the students get their academics.
What do the teachers prefer?
I think it's a real mixed bag. I've heard from some teachers that are scared to death to come back, and I understand. There are family situations, there are health situations. I understand. There are other people that, once things are put into place and there are protocols in place and they're followed, they're ready to come back. So I just think that it's a very mixed bag. I also know that our MTA, the teachers organization, is certainly speaking out against returning to school statewide, not in Wareham, but just statewide. There's some very strong statements being made. My job is to make sure that our buildings and are as safe as they can possibly be, and we've put everything in place that we can make happen, and that's what we're doing. I need staff to follow up and make sure that we follow all our protocols, etc. And I need students to do their part. And as long as we're working collaboratively together, then we stand a much better chance of keeping everyone safe. At some point, if the numbers start to escalate, then a decision will have to be made if we're going to shut down and do full remote, or let's hope the other way, our numbers dissipate. Maybe at some point we can get everybody back. That's our ultimate goal.
Melissa Fay, the Director of Student Services, she is leading or working with a task force, being tasked at searching for research-based decisions to help students who are likely to be more severely impacted by a lack of face-to-face learning. What are some findings they have found? What are some solutions, and are they feasible?
Right. Well, we do know that there are some students that we really, really, really want to get back right now, 100% of the time. And we're going to be working with our teachers and with the parents to bring our students that are the high-need students back. We know that as long as we have very small groups and we have our protocols in place, then we feel like we can bring students back. There are some students that need to come back, but not maybe 4 days a week, maybe 3 days a week. And really in that area with our special needs students, we're looking at what's best for that student and what will work best in coming back to school.
And do you think the budget will allow for you guys to make those special accommodations? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And also Bethany Chandler, the principal of Dacus Elementary School, did voice that remote learning has its challenges, especially for the youngest students. She explained that for young children with parents at home during the day, without parents at home during the day, this could be very challenging. These kids could be under the guardianship of maybe an elder sibling, or this is going to put parents in a very tough situation. So given this, how do we reconcile? What is a compromise maybe?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's any easy solution for that one. I know I've been contacted by parents who really don't know what to do. They depend on us to work with their child during the day while they're working. And now that we're not or may not be back in school, what kind of child care is available? I understand. I really do. But I also know that our job is to educate. And I cannot safely educate students and staff without certain parameters and conditions. We've reached out to the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, to look at if there's any options that they could help us at. And it's certainly a dilemma at this point.
Now, you've been an educator for a very long time. You have battled with our own challenges here in Wareham in regards to budgets, and you've tried to make it work. And now the COVID-19 coronavirus came and added more challenges. I'm wondering if there's any time in your career where you can look back and said, it was tough to be an educator, to be in this industry as it is now.
No. There has never been a time like this. There's always been challenges in education, but the challenges that we faced in education before Corona had been faced by others. And so there were kind of pathways and answers or guidelines that you could seek out. There's nothing that even compares to this that anyone in education can look for. I think the thing that has kept everybody in Wareham going is we've been in it together, we're working collectively, we have the best interest of students and staff at heart, and we're doing the very best we can. You know, summertime, believe it or not, in the world of education is one of the busiest times of the year because we're getting ready for a new school year. We have all of the nitty-gritty going on, the scheduling, the preparation, the ordering, etc. We have never had a time that has been busier than this past summer. Very little vacations, no vacations have been taken. There's no time off. It's working 7 days a week to make this work. And I have to tell you, I'm getting a little panicked because that drop-dead window of school starting is approaching and there's so much to do. So we're going to make it. We will be ready, but it certainly is a different time.
You're setting precedents.
We are. And I hope that there's no other generation that needs to experience what we've had to experience recently. I hope they never have to do this again.
What type of grading system would we adopt coming fall?
Right. There will be a grading system. There is accountability. You know, when we went out in March, we had covered the majority of the standards up to that point because we're getting ready for the MCAS testing. You know, the end of the year's coming. It's it was time that we approached certain things. This is a whole different way to look at it because everything is new. There are new standards, there's new skills that have to be learned. So there is accountability that's going to happen. There will be grading and assessments. It's different.
And to conclude, of course, we have a big event this Friday, graduation. Mm-hmm. Tell me, how important was this to give these kids some type of an in-person graduation to end and to commemorate their hard work?
Well, you know, I think that if you look at in education, it's so traditional. There are so many traditions that we have in education. Your first day of school. I mean, how many of us take pictures of our children as they're getting ready? Their last day of school. They're moving from kindergarten to first grade. They're going into high school. And then finally, their senior year. It's just steeped with traditions. There's honor night, there's senior week, there's the prom. And our students missed that. But they've received a lot of kindness as well. And probably one of their biggest cheerleaders is the principal, Mr. Palladino. And Mr. Palladino said from the get-go, these kids are going to have a graduation. I mean, he held tight to that. I'd say, Scott, are you really sure? Kim, they're going to have it. I know they're going to have it. You know, and so I'm so happy that we're able to give this to them. Not only to the students, but to their parents and to their family and relatives. It's the least we can do for the type of ending they had in their career.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of the least we can do, of course, the state is seeing a recent uptick, and Governor Baker has warned, I wouldn't say threatened, but he has warned, if he sees these trends going up, he is going to revert back the guidelines. He's going to limit the amount of people we could congregate at one particular place at one time. How nervous are you, given what is about to transpire on Friday?
Yes, I will tell you, I look at those numbers every day, and I'm holding my breath. I will tell you, we will make it work somehow. It could be a drive-by. It could be something different. But come Friday, those students are going to receive their diplomas.
Do you have anything to add?
No. This is brand new to us. I know that the decision that will be made, everyone will not be in agreement. There will be people who will not agree, and there will be people who do agree. Just know that we're working with what we have in the best interest that we can, and we just need everybody working together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To our viewers, thank you so much for joining us for this particular interview. My guest is the Superintendent of Wareham Public Schools, Dr. Kimberly Shaver-Hood, to talk about this fall, what it's going to look like and what that will mean for your child. For more information, comments, I'm sure she'll be more than happy to hear from you. With that, I wish you all a wonderful day.